What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Top 5 Scary. Do you ever read the description of a movie and then audibly make a noise? Like, there's plenty of movies out there where the concept is just so wild that to see money being put into it, it's almost like laughable. Like Birdemic, Shock and Terror, the description sounds intense, sounds like a great time. Ooh, a horde of mutated birds terrorize a quiet town. And then you see this. Yeah, no thanks. So when the opposite happens, it's quite pleasant. So, here to break down 5 horror movies that shouldn't have worked, but still did. I'm Taylor McWatters, you're you. Let's get to it. Kicking off the list at number 5, Unfriended. Released in 2015, directed by Levon Gabriades and written by Nelson Greaves, Unfriended is the webcam horror that we all talked about, for a little bit at least. The whole movie takes place over Skype calls. Now, it sounds silly, whatever, hear me out. At first, when I saw the trailer, I just looked at it like another one of those, teen horror movies, just those one-off movies that you watch with friends and then end up texting, going on Hinge the whole time, whatever. But this movie packed a punch, and if you watch it on your laptop, it is quite a treat. I mean, this raked in like $65 million in the box office for a movie about a webcam horror with a budget of only $1 million. That's pretty good. That's actually not bad at all. It did well enough to line up a sequel, which was released 4 years later, which was fine. So what's the scoop? Why is this movie so compelling? Well, the plot is a life lesson in that of itself. It centers around this supernatural force that uses the account of their dead friend, Laura Barnes. She committed suicide after embarrassing footage of her was posted online. Now, to shape a horror movie around a subject like that and with cyberbullying, good on them. They actually made a pretty good anti-bullying movie. Like, it was great, it was scary. And with technology advancing, it was just a matter of time before we get a movie like this. Like the movie Searching with John Cho came out in 2018 and has a very similar vibe, only more thriller and mystery, Also, it's a great time, check it out. So seeing Unfriended in theaters, I feel like you would have enjoyed it less. Because hear me out, I rewatched this on my laptop, right? Like right at the beginning of the pandemic, right at the beginning of lockdown. And this was a time where everybody was like FaceTiming each other, catching up, staying safe. And then I watched this movie and I kind of forgot that I was watching a movie for a few moments. Like there are notifications that you as a viewer want to click while you're watching the movie. It's great. Like my reflexes were going nuts. Every time a Skype call made a sound, I wanted to click it. Also, make sure your notifications are turned off when you're watching this on a laptop, because as I was into an intense part, I got like a text message from my dad and I thought I was in the movie for a second. It scared the life out of me.
Okay, Jess, there's a car coming. The cops are coming. They're gonna be there in 5 minutes. The cops are coming.
And before we head over to number 4, guys, we have a huge announcement. We have another channel coming back. So after 3 years of running the show here, Landon himself is coming back with Landon Productions. Air horns, confettis, boom. And the first video is premiering December 7th, so go turn on your notifications over there as well. Because I've seen glimpses of what he's working on here in the studio, and I'm pumped. You should be too, so turn them on.
Is the Canada Goose gonna take it on?
I'm on top like I'm goddamn Mario, right? I'm just
Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Okay, is this real life right now?
Number 4, 13 Ghosts. Okay, so Matthew Lillard stars in this movie, and the movie opens up with him trying to capture a ghost named the Juggernaut. And no, it is not a Scooby-Doo movie. Who would have thought? 13 Ghosts was released way back in 2001 and featured, of course, Matthew Lillard alongside Tony Shalhoub. So Shaggy and Monk, classic combo. It opens, like I said, with the attempts of collecting this evil spirit. And that's what rich guys do sometimes. They make large glass houses and trap ghosts. How comforting. I mean, what else are you gonna do? Golf? Pfft, lame. So this rich dude bites the dust trying to add the Juggernaut to his haunted Pokemon collection. Now after his death, it's revealed that he intended on leaving everything to his nephew and his family. Starting of course with the large mansion made mostly of glass, because those sound comfortable. Matthew Lillard's character disguises himself as a power company employee and realizes that the house is very haunted. Yeah, it's like full of ghosts. How many, you ask? The house is basically a prison for these terrifying 13 ghosts, held captive by spells written on the walls, and these spirits aren't too fond of their new home. So one by one these ghosts are released and the group must fight their way out. Now I was only 6 when this movie came out, and it of course scared the out of me back then. But revisiting the movie now, like as an adult, it's still really enjoyable to watch. The opening scene shows just how brutal these supernatural forces can be. So once you find out about the other 12 in this house, you can't help but be kind of excited in like this weird way. The makeup is done super well for these monsters as well. The practical effects are great. They have these amazing performances. Like maybe that's why it doesn't age. It was done really well. I mean, it's not the best film in any way, but there are some elements that were risky about this. Like the main characters can only see the ghosts with a certain type of glasses. Is this Spy Kids? Number 3, It Follows. Now, of course, I have to talk about this in a list of horror movies that shouldn't have worked. I mean, the premise here is It Follows was released in 2015, written and directed by David Robert Mitchell, and with most horror tropes centering around teens and sex and teens and forests and skinny dipping and all that jazz, this concept made me laugh out loud when I first heard about this movie. Okay, so this entity follows you, right? Like real slow and creepy, always. That's the thing, it always follows you. And the only way to get rid of it and get it off your trail is by having sex with somebody. But then the entity follows them, right? And then so on and dan forth. It's like hot potato, but with demons and intercourse. This sounds like a parody, right? Like as I'm saying it, you're thinking this is not a real movie, this is a parody. I told my buddy about it and I told him to watch it and he said it sounds like a joke. It is one of the scariest movies that I've seen. I'm not sure why exactly. Let's get into it. So this sounds like a dumb way to try and get somebody to sleep with you, right? Like this demon thing. Turns out if you make an hour and 40 minutes, this is a terrifying idea. The idea that this entity is slowly following you and it makes this new anxiety, or rather it takes elements that aren't used enough from these old slasher flicks and just drags it on a while, like those slow moments. It's great. It drags it in a direction that has a great pace. And then the scary elements remain there with you the whole time. It's just sitting right there in your pocket. Just some horror movie anxiety. Here you go. It works really well. The acting is great too. I mean, Micah Monroe, Carolette Phillips, they do exactly what you would do in this situation for the most part, and that's what makes it compelling. The scenes where our protagonist is being followed by the entity, those parts really make you unable to breathe because nobody else can see this thing, by the way. It's just you. So we get to see these characters try and not seem crazy while avoiding an invisible sex monster, and it's going so slow. It's just torturous.
I shall tell you all. If one settling a pillow by her head should say, that is not what I meant at all.
If you haven't seen It Follows, you gotta give it a shot. I mean, it's unique enough where even if you don't find it scary, whatever, you'll still be curious to see how it ends, which is good enough. Number 2, Insidious 2. Okay, whenever a great horror movie comes out, there's always that sequel that just makes it all a joke all of a sudden. Like Jason X or like Blair Witch 2. So when I saw Insidious, I loved it. It was new, it was fresh, it was scary. And then when they announced that they had a sequel in mind with the same cast and the same kind of idea, I was bummed out. Like I didn't even think I saw it in theaters right away. I was too afraid that they would just put a stain on this beautifully twisted original. James Wan dropped Insidious in 2010 and it told the story of the Lambert family as they're trying desperately to save Dalton, their son, played by the kid from Iron Man 3, Ty Simpkins. So in the first movie, their son was on the verge of being trapped in the Dark Realm. This place called The Further, okay? So this place has demons that look like Darth Maul. You know, it's not relaxing, right? So once Insidious Chapter 2 came out in 2013, fans were hoping it just wasn't the same old story. Now, it actually has to do a lot with the first plot, and this is why I give mad props to James Wan. Spoilers coming in hot. So James Wan kind of pulled like an Avengers Endgame type trick. So for the second sequel, yeah, he used time travel in a sense, so like spooky happenings that take place in the first movie are explained and then like drawn upon in the second. And it doesn't feel forced. Like some movies try and go back and fix things, maybe that fans hated. Kind of like how Halloween 2018 retconned the idea of Laurie and Michael being siblings. Nice, good stuff, right? But sometimes they have a specific motive to do these things. Maybe they're trying to set up some future spin-offs, whatever the case. Insidious 2 works, and it continues to work, with the most recent installment, Insidious: The Last Key, being a prequel to all of them. And to mess with the timeline as often as these movies do, it's surprising fans are still eager to see what comes next. Insidious 2 is a great sequel that somehow makes the first even more lovable. Little things they change, it's perfect. That's a rare thing to say, folks, especially about a horror movie. And finally, number 1, Scream. Released in 1996, directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson, Scream changed the game completely. It is the classic 90s movies with all your classic 90s players. We got Drew Barrymore, Jamie Kennedy, Matthew Lillard, again, Neve Campbell, Monica from Friends. I mean, we have all of the goods in this movie. And in a list about horror movies that shouldn't have worked, yet did, I mean, it's safe to say Scream exceeds all of our expectations. Scream is filled with nods to other iconic movie moments and tropes. I mean, from Drew Barrymore in the shower to Jamie Kennedy yelling at the TV for Jamie Lee Curtis to turn around when the killer is actually behind him. I mean, it's great. They love to acknowledge what it is, and that's what makes it unique. It's a brilliant satire. It breaks all of the rules. I'm talking about the rules, of course, of a slasher flick. Jamie Kennedy's character, Randy, lists these off for his friends, and his rules go as the following. Number 1, you can't have sex. Sex equals death. And then the whole it follows sex thing, they kind of change that as well too. Number 2, you can never drink or do drugs because it's part, of course, of the sin factor. And he finishes with number 3, never ever say, I'll be right back. It's a fun scene, one that's quite iconic now. I mean, it's great because at this point in the movie, the group of friends all react like we did while we were watching it. We're like, what? No, I thought I was the only one who knew about these tricks. Get out of town. And that's the best part. They blatantly tell you the rules to a slasher and then break them because our final girl survives and has sex. Now let's talk about when this movie came out. Okay, so this is a time where franchises like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th were just running the game. It was getting to a point where all these sequels were coming out and we were just getting tired of seeing the same old thing. They put Jason in space, like they were clearly lacking some ideas here. People needed something fresh, so Wes Craven has entered the chat. At first he thought it was a comedy, we all did. Ironically, the original name for the project was called Scary Movie, not like those other movies, we don't talk about those. Wes Craven wasn't a fan of the name change, but after it had done so well, he was ultimately happy with it. Yeah, it's iconic, you made a perfect movie, sir. Thank you. Now, of course, the name Scary Movie, like I said, is associated with those parody movies that went on for way too long, like Disaster Movie, Epic Movie. Go away, get out of here. And the performances are done by great comedic actors in this, so they're genuinely funny moments. It's the perfect movie. I don't know, they made a perfect satire movie. This movie calls all of the shots right to your face. It takes what you think you know about slasher flicks and rubs it right in your face. It's amazing. This movie calls out every horror movie, yet still remains fresh and true to its proper self as a unique slasher. It's nuts. I don't know how they did it. This movie remains a classic. I mean, it came out of nowhere, and the sequels are tons of fun as well. I'm actually really excited to see the cast return in a couple of years for the next Scream movie. Part of me thinks there's no way they're gonna come close to the magic of the first one, but I mean, clearly they've thrived and pleased fans, so I'm not too concerned. Well, there you have it, guys. Which of these horror movies surprised you when you first saw them? I feel like Insidious 2 had no right being that good. Anywho, thanks for tuning in, guys. I'm Taylor McWatters, and we'll see you next time. Stay spooky.